If it's Tuesday, it's gotta be terrain. And this week on If It's Tuesday, It's Gotta Be Terrain, we've got the Witchfate Tor put together. As you can see, it's a pretty massive building. Just to give you an idea for scale, this is a Warhammer Age of Sigmar Skull Reaper that I've just placed there at the base of the tower. This thing's a good 14 inches or so high. It's pretty nice. So let me show you some of the things that I did in putting it together. So we'll start with the top section here. As you can see, the ladders that go up to the top section from the third section I glued on here just for a little bit of ease in putting it together and taking it apart during games. I also glued on a couple of the spare bits here to the top just to give it a little bit more stability, as the top part just sits on the third level and it doesn't have much support. The other thing I did was I just glued a few bits of sprue on here, as you can see, to just keep it from wiggling around, and if it does try to wiggle off, those bits of sprue will run into the top of the third level and keep it from falling. The top section is actually probably the easiest part to put together, as the pieces don't really overlap, other than at the joins here, these skulls overlap onto the piece behind to give you a little bit of an overlap, but otherwise these parts here just glue straight together flat. The bottom part, as you can see, comes in two pieces, and you have to let that get nice and set so you've got a good circle to build the top part around. But otherwise, the top part is actually pretty easy to go together. The second and third parts are pretty similar, and as you can see on the third section here, I did leave out a big chunk and used some of the ruin wall sections to just give the piece a little bit of ruin look, like maybe a wizard had a spell go wrong and he blasted a side out of his tower. You also have these nice balconies that guys can stand on to give you some vertical aspect to your game. So I really like that part of it. Second level is intact. It's got one balcony on it because I only had one door that was accessible, so we only put one balcony on there. But you've got a lot of really nice detail in a lot of these pieces. You've got this sort of griffin with the hammer. You have these skull reliquaries built into the side that are going to offer up some nice detail for painting. And as you can see, just the bricks themselves are really quite detailed. Now, if you'll notice as I'm showing you and spinning it around here, I left a lot of these gaps in the construction. I had originally thought that I would putty these over, but I figured if this thing's supposed to be really ruined, a lot of the mortar may have fallen out and just left some cracks and some gaps. So I actually used the kit, the issues with the kit, to my advantage for thematic reasons. You can see we've got this Reaper here in the detail. So lots of really nice detail. The other thing is the base of the second and third floors. It comes in three pieces, and it's really quite a challenge to get these into a nice circle. So what I found was, what I did, I measured the distance and made a template so that when I was gluing them together, I could make sure they were a nice circle. And for the most part, they line up pretty well. I'll talk a little bit more in a bit about how these go together. And then finally, the base. Once again, I love the detail that you have here in the base. Once again, four sections that go together. You have your entrance here with some stairs that line up decently. And excuse me, and once again, the same kind of details on these pieces, the Reaper and the skull reliquaries, and you even have good detail on the inside. Here you've got some skulls and books that are set into the wall. You have this sort of bricked up door that I guess they didn't want anyone to be able to come in. You even have a nice trap door that maybe goes down to the sewers there that would be under this castle. Since I used one of the ruin wall sections, I ended up having an extra wall section left over that I didn't put into the third floor. And it also has this extra piece here, and this is going to work out well for me to show you kind of how these go together. So when you're building the tower, you might think that maybe they'll just lay over each other one way or the other, but you don't quite get a good circle doing that. And then you might think, well, maybe they just slot together, and then you see that that's kind of difficult, and you don't get a good circle when you do that either. So it's sort of an interesting kit. You have to sort of play around with it and, you know, kind of mesh them together. And like I said, drawing yourself out a template to get that good circle is key in figuring out how these parts go together. The other issue that you'll see here is gnarly mold lines that are on the pieces, and, you know, sprue junk that you have to trim off, and you have to really go after these mold lines with with a knife and a file to get them smoothed out so that the parts will actually fit together. You can see I really have to kind of shove that together to kind of get them to line up, and I think that's one of the disadvantages of this kit that you can really put to your advantage is, you know, using the gaps that are formed as just part of your ruin if you don't want to putty it all together and make everything look pristine. And I figure, since I'm using this for Frostgrave mostly, it's okay if it looks kind of dilapidated, because it's Frostgrave and everything's kind of a ruin at that point. But yeah, all the pieces have this sort of, you know, three here and 2 gaps, and then 1 gap here and space to go in, so that they all, you know, once you kind of get the hang of it after the first couple of levels, then you're good to go, and it's nice and set, and it works out quite well. It takes a little bit of finagling to get your circles right so that everything will stack up nicely, but once you figure it out, it actually works really well. The floors of the second and third level have, you know, these rafters that when you put this over the stairs actually kind of works really quite well to you kind of find where your stairs are at through the gap in the floor, and then it sort of just twists together and is relatively sturdy. I've played actually 3 or 4 games with it and haven't had anything fall apart on me. So if you take the time to make sure that your circles are nice and aligned, then everything will fit together pretty well and be relatively sturdy for you with this kit. And then the top section, you can see it just fits on, and we just slide that back so we can get more of it in the shot. All in all, it's a really good kit. I enjoyed putting it together, and in future episodes of If It's Tuesday, It's Gotta Be Terrain, I'll show you how we paint this tower up. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it gave you a little more insight into the Witchfate Tor. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you in the next video.